Dear Chosen, one of the light, please listen carefully. Something extraordinary is currently happening. The people who took advantage of your generosity, the systems that slowed your progress, and the forces that sapped your energy are all facing their reckoning. Furthermore, the fact that you are receiving this message is not by accident. Your spirit is prepared. Your season is changing. This is the precise time you were supposed to receive this message. If you feel that resonance in your chest, that stillness, and are aware that this message is meant for you, please leave a comment. Simply enter the phrase, "Because the information I'm about to reveal will cause a change within you that has been waiting patiently for its turn." You've been carrying a significant burden, not just frustration or disappointment. You have been burdened by inequity, the kind that occurs when you operate with integrity, put forth your best effort, and still see others benefit from the foundation you have built. You kept your silence. You put your faith in the procedure. You believed that the truth would eventually be revealed and equilibrium restored. I require you to understand the following. What was taken from you was not by chance. It was meant for. They did not solely take your ideas, efforts, or resources. They took advantage of your momentum. They deprived you of your peace. They drained your confidence, which you had before discovering the calculated nature of certain people. For a short time, it appeared that they had escaped unscathed. There is no accountability, and therefore no consequences. Silence. However, silence is not the same as absence. The sound of silence frequently indicates that something legal is occurring in the background. The unseen is bound by a spiritual law that cannot be bribed, manipulated, or ignored. When an individual comes into contact with a heaven-marked object, they are not in conflict with you. They're submitting a case to a higher court. Furthermore, the court does not adhere to human timelines. It functions precisely. I will try to express this as clearly as possible. The delay you encountered was not due to neglect. It was an act of preparation. Evidence was being collected. Pattern documentation was currently underway. Motives were fully disclosed to the authority that truly matters, rather than you. The wait is finally over. Think about this for a moment. An investigation is conducted before any legitimate legal proceeding yields a judgment. The documentation is present before the sentencing. The procedure becomes more comprehensive as the gravity of the offense increases. Divine indifference was not the experience you were having. It was a divine due process. And when heaven builds a case, it builds it completely. If this speaks to you, please take a moment to click the like icon. It is not for my benefit, but rather as a show of support for the current changes that are in your favor. When you chose restraint over retaliation, you were acting in your best interests. Every time you chose to remain silent when you could have revealed someone, you were allowing heaven to operate without interference. Instead of cursing, you wept every evening. You were positioned beneath an impenetrable cover. They may have disengaged temporarily, but they did so without proper safeguards. You kept an adequate level of protection. It is essential that you understand the concept of spiritual timing. Temporary outcomes are frequently the result of rapid events. When decisions require time, the consequences are irreversible. The arrangement being made for you is not a temporary victory. This is a long-term repositioning. The foundation being built is resistant to shaking because it was not built with human labor. It is based on the concept of divine order. You've probably asked yourself, why did this take so long? Several times. Why was I compelled to witness their success year after year while I struggled with my own? This is the reason. You would not have been prepared to handle it if the reversal had occurred earlier. You would have entered the rooms with injuries that would have jeopardized the structure you had built if the doors had been opened sooner. Punishment was not the cause of the delay. It was an act of preparation. You needed time to recover in ways you didn't realize were damaged. This is not just retribution. This is not a one-on-one exchange. A complete reversal is imminent. The foundations of the structures they built on deception are deteriorating. The advantages gained through manipulation are being revoked. The doors that were opened for them due to the stolen items are now closing. And what they thought was secure is now revealed to be transitory. This is easily understandable. When discussing the concept of reaping what one sows, Scripture avoids using metaphors. It is establishing a law as reliable as gravity. It is impossible to violate it without facing consequences. They planted the seeds of larceny, manipulation, and deception. And while you waited, those seedlings grew into exposure rather than blessings. Their structure is disintegrating from the inside out, and it is happening in ways that cannot be attributed to you. Their own decisions have led to their demise. Self-inflicted consequences is a key phrase in this context. They are not under siege. The consequences of their own actions are exposing them. They built a structure that appeared stable due to the preservation of secrecy. However, secrets are not kept indefinitely. The light always detects fractures. When it occurs, the seemingly unbreakable structure disintegrates at a rapid rate. It's possible that you won't get an apology. Confessions may not be granted to you. However, you will see movement. You will witness abrupt transformations that are illogical unless viewed through the lens of divine intervention. A position becomes available that you were previously told you would not be able to pursue. Even when you are not present, a conversation shifts to another room. An alliance that seemed impervious to rupture begins to unravel. The momentum of an endeavor that excluded you abruptly slows. Pay close attention to the details. The manifestation of divine justice does not lead to the chaotic movement of heaven. It is demonstrated through the application of discipline. Your announcement will be unnecessary. It is unnecessary for you to emphasize this. Individuals will observe it independently and wonder how the situation could have changed so suddenly. Some people may inquire as to what happened, and your response will be straightforward. Externally, there was no difference. Everything underwent internal transformations. You stopped arguing and started building trust. This is not a disorder. This is the process of reestablishing order. That season was not meant to make you break. You were made to go through it in order to improve yourself. And now what is returning to you is more than just what you lost. Influence, clarity, and authority are qualities you were born with, and they don't need to be defended because they are rooted in reality. An ancient story tells of a man who built a snare for someone he envied. He dedicated time, resources, and energy to the creation of a device intended to cause destruction. However, on the morning that it was supposed to be used, the snare malfunctioned. The designer slipped into it. That was not a stroke of luck. That was a spiritual principle in action, and the same principle is currently at work in your situation. The adversary prepared a setup, but their estimation was incorrect. They were unaware that the structure they were building would be used for their own public exposure. It was never intended for you to participate in this conflict. You were expected to remain steadfast, rooted, and let God handle the legal issues. I've had personal experience with this. I've personally felt the joy of seeing someone thrive by putting their hard work to use. I understand the confusion of seeing their doors open while yours remains closed. I'm aware of those lonely nights when you relive events, wondering if you were too patient, too kind, or too trusting. Failure was not the source of the uncertainty. It was the result of integrity's efforts to understand injustice. Please take a moment to collect yourself. If you are still with me, please leave a comment containing the number 777. Allow that to act as a marker, a sign of agreement with the current situation. What was stolen from you was more than just material. It was an emotional energy. Your leisure time should have been building up in your personal life. It was the ability to trust without reservations. They did not simply capitalize on the opportunity. They accepted calm. Furthermore, it appeared that there would be no consequences for a period of time. However, the consequences aren't immediately clear. They approach. Here's what you should prepare for. Restoration is about more than just recovering what was previously lost. It entails accepting the role that was always meant for you. This indicates that certain aspects of your life are about to undergo a rapid transformation. Relationships that deplete you will eventually disintegrate. You will feel uncomfortable in environments that restrict you. Opportunities that align with your evolving identity will emerge, often without your intervention. This is something that cannot be compelled. This is an item that you acknowledge and accept. I'd like to provide a more detailed description of the appearance of genuine restoration rather than one based on emotional exaggeration. Initially, you will notice an improvement in clarity. The decisions that had previously paralyzed you will now become clear. You will be able to determine which requests to accept and which to decline without having to conduct extensive analysis. You are not putting in more effort to achieve clarity. It originates from the alignment. You will then receive an unexpected favor. Doors that you were previously unaware of will open. Resources that were unavailable last month will become available. People will contact you not because you pursued them, but because they noticed a difference in your presence. This was not an accident. This is the result of the spiritual repositioning that occurred while you waited. The third phase involves stabilizing your vitality. You've been operating in survival mode for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to be in a relaxed state. Restoration results in profound internal stability that is independent of external circumstances. You will get better sleep. And you will be able to see more clearly. The reason you will feel lighter is not that your problems have gone away, but that the burden of injustice has been lifted off your shoulders. Fourth, the impact of outdated patterns will be reduced. Conversations from the past will no longer run through your mind. You will stop monitoring their activities. You will lose interest in trying to convince anyone of anything. That's not a denial. That is liberty. Freedom is thought to be quite quiet. It settles calmly. You may begin to notice that conversations have a distinct vibe. Individuals who previously ignored you will suddenly take an interest in you. Organizations that have previously neglected you will extend invitations. Resources that were unavailable a month ago will now be available. This was not an accident. This is the process of realigning. Heaven does not restore in a silent way. It restores in a way that eliminates ambiguity about the intervener. There is no intention of elevating you in order to highlight a point. Your elevation brings about order. A table is being set up for demonstration purposes rather than retribution. Those who have questioned your integrity will change their language. Those who previously underestimated your endurance will reconsider their assessment. I'd like to discuss a specific topic in this context. Individuals from the past may resurface, not always to apologize, but to observe your current situation and responses. What you say internally is more important than what you say externally. It is unnecessary to reopen doors to show that you have recovered. Healing uses boundaries to communicate, just as forgiveness does. My personal journey has provided me with the following knowledge. Certain people will return because they see your transformation and want to take advantage of the new season. However, not all individuals who return are eligible for access. Discernment is the ability to distinguish between someone who is truly transformed and someone who is simply changing their strategy. You are not required to explain why you are keeping specific entrances closed. Forgiveness and reconciliation are distinct concepts. Forgiveness is an act of self-care. It releases you from the bonds of resentment. Reconciliation requires the recognition of two parties, genuine change, and mutual acknowledgement. It is possible to absolve an individual unconditionally while still concluding that the relationship has served its purpose and does not require revivification. That is not an indicator of toughness. This is the essence of wisdom. Keep an eye out for people who only contact you when the seasons change. Keep an eye out for people who went missing during difficult times but reappeared when things got better. Their timing reveals all of the information needed to determine their motivation. True relationships do not wait for success to show their support. They manifest themselves during a conflict. As you progress, you'll need to be ready for unexpected discomfort. Your restoration will not be celebrated by everyone. Some people were at ease with your depression because it helped them overcome their own feelings of stagnation. They are unprepared to face the challenges that your ascent will bring. They may present their distress as a cause for concern. They may express their jealousy as a form of caution. Avoid internalizing their resistance. It is completely unrelated to you and entirely dependent on the information your progress provides about their own decisions. Access is not required for forgiveness. It is permissible to forgive unconditionally and move forward without considering the events that caused you harm. That is not a state of being cold. That is the wisdom that comes from experience. As your life returns to normalcy, you may feel an unexpected sense of calm. The calm of order, rather than the silence of anticipation. Constant supervision is required in the midst of chaos. Order creates space in which creativity, inspiration, and confidence can be reactivated without having to compare oneself to others. This is one of the most significant changes you'll see. Your creativity, which may have been stifled for years, will suddenly resurface. Ideas will appear spontaneously. Solutions will appear without any anxiety. Rather than focusing on problems, you will start to consider potential solutions. That is not an example of optimistic reasoning. That is the unavoidable result of operating from a position of safety rather than survival. Non-essential functions are turned off when the nervous system is constantly in threat mode. One of these is creativity. Innovation requires a sense of security. Mental space is required for vision. Neither can thrive while in flight or combat. However, as the restoration process comes to an end, your internal system resets itself. You move from survival to prosperity. During this transition, previously dormant abilities begin to awaken. You may also notice changes in your dream state, such as an increase in your ability to envision the future. You may have felt modest in your dreams for years due to previous disappointments. You stopped allowing yourself to have grandiose fantasies because every time you did, something happened that undermined them. However, you will now have an internal sense of authorization. Permission to imagine again, to desire more, and to believe that what you want is actually possible. If you notice this change, even if it is only slightly noticeable, please share the location from which you are viewing. Enter the name of your city or country in the comments section. Divine justice isn't abstract. It occurs in real-world settings and among real people. Some of you have expressed concern that allowing yourself to savor this season will make you vulnerable again. While fear is understandable, it is not appropriate in this context. Loss is not an invitation to celebrate. Carelessness is to blame. Furthermore, you are no longer negligent. You currently have discernment. You can tell when an object is consistent with your values and when it is driven solely by egotism. With that discernment, you will protect your structures better than fear could ever do. I will confront that apprehension head-on, as it is both plausible and widespread. Being cautious around fire is a natural reaction after being burned. However, the goal is not to stop combustion indefinitely. The goal is to learn the necessary skills to use it without becoming engrossed. You do not have to endure the fear of another betrayal in order to protect yourself from one. Live in a state of wisdom. Wisdom differentiates between prudent risk and rash exposure. You remain diminutive out of fear. Wisdom not only allows you to grow, but it also protects you. The distinction is of critical importance. Fear implies that nobody should be trusted. Trust with caution suggests wisdom. Fear directs us to protect everything. Wisdom dictates that one should keep what is important and discard what isn't. Scarcity is the cause of fear. Abundance is the foundation of wisdom. You are not being asked to go back in time to prevent something from happening again. You are being asked to apply what you have learned and move forward with confidence. This is also a time when your voice will be important. Your groundedness, rather than your increased volume, is the reason. People may be interested in hearing your point of view. They may inquire as to how you kept your cool in the midst of chaos. Dramatizing your story is unnecessary. The majority of inquiries are resolved without the use of words due to your presence. In addition, I need to address a minor issue. Some of those who harmed you were unaware of the consequences of their actions. This does not absolve them. However, it reduces the burden of resentment. Resentment is a burden you do not need to carry at this time. You're moving too quickly to be slowed down by extraneous weight. As you progress, you may realize that you're redefining success. The focus is no longer solely on the outcome. The issue here is sustainability. The subject is harmony. It refers to the compatibility of one's identity and actions. That redefinition will guide your decisions more precisely than ambition ever did. Do not doubt the attraction you are experiencing right now. This is not agitation. It's a direction. You are drawn to people, places, and opportunities that are more in line with your current identity than with your past self. This may entail letting go of specific roles, routines, or relationships, not out of rage, but out of clarity. Let me discuss one aspect that is frequently overlooked in discussions about restoration stewardship. Heaven does not simply restore what was lost. You are entrusted with much more. Responsibility is a result of this, not a burden. There's a distinction. You are now entering a period in which the significance of your actions is greater than ever before, not because you are being judged by God, but because you now wield influence that extends beyond your own life. Individuals are observing you not to judge you, but to learn from you. Your choices, responses, and integrity in this new season will either confirm or contradict the message of your life. This is why the character developed while waiting. Talent has the ability to transport you to a world that character cannot sustain. Integrity is required to pass through a door that might be opened by chance. Heaven does not hasten this process, as shortcuts result in weak foundations. What you are currently receiving is more than just a blessing. It is a platform, and platforms require people who can manage their weight without becoming arrogant, and who can show favor without appearing foolish. Now that doors are opening, some of you may feel compelled to act quickly. Do not succumb to that urge. Speed does not always equate to advancement. Occasionally, the most efficient course of action is to proceed at a relaxed pace. When you rush into decisions, you are afraid of missing out. When you move in peace, you make decisions that are aligned. One causes disorder, while the other leaves a legacy. You should also be cautious about who you allow to give you advice during this season. It is not true that everyone who offers advice has your best interests at heart. Certain people give advice based on their own limitations, projecting their anxieties onto your potential. Be selective. Seek advice from people who have been in your situation before, rather than those who are still in it now. Clarity requires no explanation. Occasionally, you will be required to make decisions that appear illogical to those around you. That is acceptable. Not all maneuvers require your defense. Certain matters stand between you and heaven. Respect the sacred area. Not all matters require an announcement, explanation, or justification. Quiet confidence is a powerful force. Please let me know if this message has touched you deeply before we proceed. Subscribing allows you to stay connected to this flow, because the released content is not entirely random. It is consistent with a frequency that your spirit recognizes. Gratitude may begin to increase unexpectedly. Genuine appreciation for the lessons you learned from adversity, rather than forced gratitude. Gratitude is not an endorsement for suffering. Recognizing your progress allows you to continue in your current position without resentment. You did not squander the years. It was they who prepared you. Keep this in mind as you move forward with the restoration. You are not alone in this journey. You might be surprised by the following. You will discover that you appreciate the people who betrayed you. Not because their actions were morally correct, but because they revealed a side of you that would not have emerged otherwise. Strength you were previously unaware of. Resilience that is only developed in response to stress. Character that is solely developed through testing. They thought they were destroying you. In reality, they were helping you grow. This does not imply that you are inviting them to reintegrate into your life. This does not mean that you should downplay the actions they took. It implies that you recognize that heaven's purpose for your life is greater than any of their evil intentions. What they meant was to cause harm. For the purpose of preparation, heaven was redirected. Joseph said it. I am simply reminding you that the principle is still active. You are walking with wisdom gained, discernment sharpened, and faith that has been tried and proven. That's a rare combination. And that is why what you are building now will last. Let me speak to those of you who feel like you lost too much time. You look around and see people your age who are already established, already successful, already where you thought you would be by now. And you wonder if you can ever catch up. Here is what you need to know. You're not lagging. You are being repositioned. And when heaven repositions someone, it does not occur gradually. It occurs suddenly. A single moment can change a decade of delay. One conversation can achieve what 10 years of effort cannot. One divine introduction can be more effective than 100 networking events. No, you were not overlooked. You've been prepared. And prepared people don't climb slowly. They are launched. Let me conclude with a truth that must settle in your spirit. The reversal you've sensed is not in the future. It is in the present tense. The wheels are already in motion. Doors that were sealed are starting to open. Conversations that exclude you are being reconsidered. The systems that were preventing you from proceeding are being restructured. You are not in a state of waiting. You are currently in the process of becoming. And you're becoming someone who doesn't need to prove anything. Because the evidence of heaven's favor is visible in your movements. You may not see everything change overnight, but you'll notice signs. Small confirmations will accumulate into undeniable patterns. A phone call that alters course. An email that creates a pathway. A conversation that reconnects you with opportunity. These are not just coincidences. These are orchestrations. Pay attention to peace. Peace is the most reliable indicator that you are heading in the right direction. When something corresponds to this season, you will feel it in your body. When something does not work, you will feel resistance. Trust your internal compass. It has been reset as a result of everything you've gone through. Here is how you can tell if something is truly from this season of restoration. It will be both exciting and relaxing at the same time. Excitement without peace is typically ego. Peace without excitement is usually calming. But when both are present, you are in agreement. That combination is rare and should be celebrated when it occurs. There's one more thing. People who benefit from your rise this season will be different than in the past. These will be people who recognize your worth without having to diminish it. They will celebrate your accomplishments without feeling threatened by them. They will invest in you without attempting to control you. That shift in relational dynamics is a component of the restoration. You are not going back to old networks. You are being introduced to new people. Networks that reflect your maturity, vision, and capacity. Don't try to hold on to connections that no longer fit. Release them with grace and make room for what is right. Some of these old connections served as training grounds. They taught you what to look for and avoid. They showed you red flags that you will never ignore again. They revealed patterns that you will not tolerate again. Do not regret your connections. Honor what they taught you and move forward with wisdom. As this message comes to an end, I'd like you to take one deep breath. Feel the sensation of a weight being lifted. Notice how clarity has returned. Recognize the strength that has been rebuilt within you. You are no longer the same person you were when you first experienced loss. You're stronger, wiser, and more discerning. The enemies who robbed you are losing everything. Not because you cursed them, but because the law of heaven is clear. What they built on deception cannot last. What they gained through manipulation cannot last, and what they thought they had secured is being taken away. You are not required to monitor their fall. You should concentrate on your rise. Keep your gaze forward. Keep your spirit calm and believe that what is happening is exactly what was meant to happen. Let me emphasize this once more because it is important. You were not the victim of a random occurrence. You were the target of a strategic attack. Your enemy did not realize, however, that targeting someone who is protected by heaven does not weaken them. It activates a level of defense and recompense that is far beyond what human effort could ever achieve. They chose the wrong one. and they're learning that lesson in irreversible ways. Please let me know if this word has strengthened your faith. Comment Amen, or use a heart emoji. Allow this to be a moment of agreement between your spirit and the truth you've just received. You are standing at your appointed time. The season of restoration is not approaching. It is present. Walk in with confidence. Walk in with peace. And walk into it knowing that heaven has already prepared the way. Go in with strength. The reversal is active. The blessing has been released. Everything your spirit has sensed is about to be confirmed in ways you can see, touch, and feel. This is your opportunity. Don't doubt it. Do not postpone it. Step into it fully, knowing that you are protected, guided, and favored. The table is set. The doors are opening. And what happens next will leave no doubt about who defended you. Maintain your loyalty. Stay focused. And see what happens when heaven acts on your behalf. We ascend in the direction of the sun. Chosen one, the light has brought you back to us. Pay close attention. I am currently experiencing a stirring of the Lord's Spirit. And if you feel a weight in your chest or a sense of calm in the midst of your day's chaos, it's a sign that heaven is trying to get your attention. This isn't just another message. Before anything else, this is a divine message bearing your name. Take a deep breath before proceeding with any further actions. Allow your shoulders to relax and ask the Lord for a pure heart and a clear mind. Currently, there is no reason to be suspicious. This presents an opportunity for spiritual sobriety. This is a moment when the veil of heaven is partially lifted, allowing you to see what has previously been hidden in plain sight. I require your immediate understanding of a critical matter. I am not the source of the information you are about to get. It's being transmitted through me. There's a distinction. This distinction is also important because of the term's significance. It exudes authority and bears the imprint of divine timing. You did not randomly select this message. Atsin, you did not come to this location by chance. You were directed here because someone in your life, someone you care about and trust, deserves to be recognized for who they truly are. A strategic yet silent change is taking place in your immediate vicinity. Furthermore, there is someone in your social circle whose presence isn't entirely what it seems. Their names begin with the letter J. And while your heart may continue to refer to them as friends, the Lord is revealing something much deeper. The Most High is not disclosing this information to humiliate them, but to protect you. It is not a sign of weakness to go through this. You aren't overly sensitive. Discrimination is frequently a manifestation of the Lord's mercy in the form of discomfort, preventing you from continuing to pay the price of serenity in exchange for connection. You could feel the tension, the restlessness, and the way in which calm dissipated when they arrived. It is not the product of your imagination. That is discernment. In His mercy, God reveals the truth not to punish, but to protect. The Lord is not instructing you to level accusations against others. The Lord is teaching you how to discern fruit, guard your heart, and walk with wisdom. For there is nothing hidden that cannot be revealed. And now listen with spiritual clarity. There is a window, but it is neither indefinite nor eternal. Something in the spiritual realm will begin to move by the end of the day. If you don't recognize this opportunity, you risk falling into a trap. Avoid rushing into a confrontation. The adversary has been quietly constructing. First, return to devotion. Inquire of the Lord to confirm the truth through scripture, serenity, and wise counsel. However, if you stick with me and remain spiritually aware, you will be able to walk right into protection, clarity, and breakthrough. If this resonates with you, please leave a comment below. Simply say Amen. Not as a ritual, but as an acknowledgement that you are ready to receive God's revelations. Your participation helps spread this message to those who need it. Adhere to the Lord's serenity and let it serve as your boundary. This is not a source of fear. This is favoritism. God's revelation is an expression of compassion. And the fact that you're hearing this now indicates that He's trying to reach out to you. God's compassion does not lead to confusion. It generates clarity. Furthermore, clarity consistently promotes decision-making. You've been wondering what's causing the gradual evaporation of the peace you used to feel in the company of certain people. Why do conversations that were once so reassuring now impose an unusual burden on your spirit? You smile and nod. You maintain the connection, but there is an underlying sense of unease. You leave feeling exhausted, not energized, perplexed, or unclear. It's also possible that you questioned your own thoughts. Am I just being overly sensitive? However, I'd like to inform you of something. This is not the product of your imagination. This is spiritual discernment. Furthermore, the Most High is now activating it to protect you. Someone who is friendly, familiar, and appears to agree is nearby. Every time they speak, your spirit becomes agitated. Say, and this unease is not anxiety. It is discernment. They smile as you rise, but their hearts resent your radiance. Their silence is more convincing than their acclaim. They offer support, but it is only enough to maintain a close relationship, not to truly celebrate you. The unease you felt was not anxiety. Listen, that is the Holy Spirit's murmur beckoning you closer. Observe that the enemy rarely appears with antlers and disorder. He frequently enters via what appears to be a safe and familiar route. Similarly, Delilah approached Samson with affection and comfort rather than a sword. However, her presence was intended to destabilize and disassemble him. She investigated his patterns. She became aware of his vulnerabilities. She waited for the appropriate occasion. When that moment arrived, she responded with seemingly innocent questions rather than violence. With caresses that radiated affection. With language that expressed apprehension. This is the mechanism through which spiritual sabotage operates. It does not make any announcement. It's self-integrating. It becomes a part of your comfort, routine, and expectations. By the time you become aware of the problem, the roots have already grown deep. When you detect the danger, patterns have already emerged. It is difficult to withdraw from the situation once you begin to feel guilty for even expressing suspicion. There are people who enter your life with the intention of observing rather than creating, to collect information, to gradually reduce your self-assurance. They pose questions that appear to be supportive but are actually designed to gather intelligence. They offer assistance that fosters dependency rather than empowerment. Their celebration of your victories is boisterous enough to appear genuine, but quiet enough to reveal the underlying apprehension. And the Lord is now disclosing this to you, not to instill fear, but to break the spell of confusion and lead you to freedom. God discloses in order to protect, not to humiliate. That is His inherent nature. This is the pattern He follows. This is how He conducts Himself around those He cares about. It's no coincidence that He speaks so clearly, even pointing to a letter, a name, or a pattern. This is a covenant-related concern. I perceive you, he says. I am aware of the challenges you face, and I am providing you with the information you need to make the best decision. The Most High does not whisper names casually. He gives you this direct encouragement because you are entering a season in which you must avoid the presence of untrue voices. I'd like to be crystal clear. This person may not be clearly malevolent. They are not allowed to spread slander. They may even pray with you. However, the issue is with their internal posture. The civility conceals a deep sense of insecurity. Behind the compliments is the reality of comparison. The low-key resentment you've instilled in them has grown to the point where they can't keep it under control. Furthermore, this is what adds to the confusion. Not all of them are bad. They have enjoyable occasions. They had previously supported you. They are aware of your story, challenges, and secrets. And that history creates a bond that is too valuable to break. However, I must inform you of something that you may find painful, but it is necessary. The fact that someone is aware of your past does not mean that they are a good fit for your future. It is insufficient for them to remember your purpose just because they witnessed your anguish. The fact that they were present when you were battered does not imply that they are capable of supporting you entirely. Your wilderness season is assigned to specific people. Their purpose is to accompany you through the desert, to help you endure the drought, and to provide companionship in the aridity. However, they are unable to make the transition when the seasons change, the promised land becomes visible, and the breakthrough begins to appear. Not because they are evil, but because they were not summoned to that area. It is not due to a lack of concern, but rather to the completion of their assignment. Additionally, this is hazardous. Not because they are more powerful than God's plan, but because your consent to them may impede your own obedience. Is it permissible for two people to walk together without prior agreement? Amos, chapter 3, verse 3, is more than just a pleasant passage. It is a spiritual law. When you align yourself spiritually, emotionally, and even socially with someone whose intentions are less than honorable, you begin to question the instructions that God has explicitly given you. Watering down your fire is necessary to keep them comfortable. You reduce your volume to avoid making their ego feel diminished. To avoid exacerbating their insecurity, you keep your enthusiasm under control. And soon you forget who you were before you tried to be appealing to someone who was never meant to carry what God placed in you. If you are currently experiencing this conviction, please contact me. Tap the like icon. It is beneficial to convey this message to someone who is involved in a similar covert struggle. And please stay with me until the end, because we will conclude with a prayer that will change the atmosphere in your life. As a result, the following is the reality that may be difficult to accept. The problem affects more people than just them. It is the area you have allowed them to occupy. They extract energy from you. The time you devote to understanding their emotions. The burden of constantly feeling like one is walking on spiritual eggshells. It is neither sustainable nor sacred. This is not a discussion of superstition. This isn't a vague sensation. This is a call for radical clarity. Your spirit has long sensed that God is verifying this. You've been enveloped in a mist that gradually dissipates, leaving you with a glimmer of optimism. However, clouds reappeared when you were close to them. You read the word and pray, but you still feel disconnected. It's not because of your relapse. It is because your spirit is transporting an object or person that was not meant to be there. Consider Jonah's experience on the voyage to Tarshish. The tempest eventually claimed the lives of everyone aboard that ship. His disobedience, not their transgression, was the reason. The mariners did not commit any violations. They were simply trying to survive. I'm simply attempting to move from one port to another. However, they became entangled in a tumult unrelated to them, caused by a single individual fleeing from God. Some of you are experiencing turbulence not as a result of your own rebellion, but because someone in your circle is not aligned with God, and you have allowed them to continue on your journey. You persist in your attempts to calm the storm. You continue to change your sails. You continue to exert yourself, pray more forcefully, and maintain a stronger belief. However, the confusion persists because the source of the chaos is still in place. The following is an intriguing aspect of the story. The mariners hesitated to throw Jonah overboard. Everything else was tried before this. They increased the intensity of their rowing. They invoked their deities. They threw the cargo into the sea. They implemented all measures except the one that would actually solve the problem. Because abandoning an individual is perceived as unjust, it possesses a sadistic quality. I feel like I'm giving up. However, there are times when surrendering an individual is the most compassionate course of action for all involved. Jonah was aware of it. This is why he told them to cast him into the sea. He was aware that his presence, proximity, and position on the ship endangered everyone. The sea became calm as soon as they released him. The tempest died down after they were released. They restored peace by prioritizing the essential over the pleasurable. So, what is your course of action? You bring this up during prayer. Not a rumor. Silence that is not passive but aggressive. However, genuine supplication was led by the Holy Spirit. This is critical, so I'll be more specific. Keep a record of their identity. Yes, the one with the J. Please don't just think about it. Please do not rely solely on your emotions. Write it on paper. Make it palpable. Realize this. It's a powerful experience to see it in your own handwriting, to bring the invisible into the light and make it visible. Then you pray. However, this is not a casual prayer. Not an immediate response. Lord, assist me and proceed. I'm talking about a prayer that comes from the depths of your being, from your spirit, from that innermost part of you that knows something is wrong, even if you can't express it fully. I beseech the Lord to reveal the information I seek. Verify it using your own words. Verify it in my nightmares. Verify it with people I respect who are truthful. And be prepared, because God always responds to prayers for clarity when the heart is willing to obey. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and he will give it to him according to James, chapter 1, verse 5. This is not a hypothetical scenario. This isn't a rare occurrence. This is a pledge. God does not withhold wisdom from those who make sincere requests. He refrains from participating in sports. He does not leave you in the gloom. Do not be surprised if your perspective shifts after you pray. Don't be surprised if you hear something that confirms the sensations your spirit has been experiencing. Avoid being surprised. God will not abandon you in doubt if a memory that was dismissed months ago suddenly reappears, something trivial that seemed insignificant at the time but now makes perfect sense. He is too invested in your mission to let you be quietly depleted by someone who refuses to grow. Furthermore, I'd like to inform you of other possible outcomes. You may begin to notice patterns that you had previously overlooked. the way they change the subject when you announce good news. The manner in which they consistently explain why your success isn't as impressive as it appears. The way they inquire about your plans is not intended to celebrate them, but rather to expose their flaws. The manner in which they provide advice that appears prudent but consistently causes feelings of inferiority. These aren't arbitrary observations. This is a revelation. This is the Holy Spirit revealing to you something that has always been present. This is not about canceling individuals. This is about reclaiming peace, realigning your circle, and protecting the promise of your life. Because frankly, you've outgrown that dynamic. Not out of vanity, but rather from the heart. What was once relaxing now feels restrictive. What was once a connection now seems to be a compromise. Furthermore, the Holy Spirit is not simply giving you permission to relinquish control. He is in charge of it. There is a reason why you keep returning to this moment, message, and realization. This is due to the fact that the next level requires a separate circle. Your next chapter will require a cleaner environment. It is impossible to complete the next assignment with people who are still envious of the previous one. God's benevolence is preparing the way for the future by revealing what needs to be shed. Some of you have prayed for God to open new doors, but He has tried to close the wrong ones first. You cannot enter a new season with the weight of relationships that were meant to teach you rather than bind you. There are connections that once served a purpose, but have now become a form of incarceration. Some alliances begin with innocence and end with poison. The grace to remain is fading as the grace to depart is infused. Allow me to explain the practical implications of this. Assume you're in a house on fire. You're aware that you must leave. The humidity is palpable. The haze is visible. The flames crackle, making an audible sound. However, the wall is covered with photographs. Each room is full of memories. The furniture you've spent years collecting. You are currently deciding which items to save, which to carry, and which are worth the risk of staying for an extra period. However, God stands at the door, urging us to abandon everything. Your existence is worth more than any memory. Your future is more important than any level of comfort. It is impossible to fulfill your calling if you are consumed by the futile effort to save something that was never meant to withstand the fire. Currently, you are in this location. The house is in flames. The smoke is becoming more dense. And you're still trying to decide whether to keep the relationship, connection, or history you've built with someone who is no longer a part of your story. I am here to tell you that it should be ignited with love, urgency, and sacred boldness. Release whatever is on fire. Approach the entrance with haste. Run toward liberty. Run toward the pure air that lies on the other side of this decision. Because whatever you think you're losing has already been lost. The object you believe you're protecting is already contaminated. In reality, the very thing you believe is keeping you alive is gradually, quietly, and consistently killing you. Before we go any further, I'd like to ask a question. Have you finished the subscription process? If not, please subscribe immediately. This type of content is not accidentally included in your feed. There are additional messages that your spirit needs to be heard. Do not overlook them because you scrolled past this point. This is what liberation looks like right now. It is not the result of anger or bitterness. It is distinguished by tranquility and clarity. It occurs when you stop defending your discernment and start relying on it. It happens when you realize that an individual's previous kindness does not always imply that they are still kind to you. Seasons change, people change, and the grace that keeps a relationship going can suddenly end. When that grace is lifted, no amount of effort will be able to restore what God has already released. Stop trying to revive what was buried in paradise. Please don't water the lifeless seeds in the hopes that they'll bloom. Refrain from reviving the voices God silenced for your benefit. The discomfort you feel after releasing them does not indicate a loss. It's labor. You are giving birth to something new, and it cannot emerge if you continue to hold on to the past. Consider Ruth. She had every reason to stay in Moab, including her grief, memories, and home. When Naomi rose to return to Bethlehem, Ruth made a decision that changed the course of generations. I'll follow you wherever you go. Your God will be my God. Ruth, chapter 1, verse 16. She left her comfort zone and headed straight for her destiny. And what appeared to be a loss became a gateway to legacy. Ruth was unaware that Boaz was waiting for her. She had no idea that restoration was about to happen. She was certain she couldn't stay in a place where God was not present. That is the Spirit's current message. It is unnecessary for you to be aware of the following steps. You simply need to be aware of the items you are not permitted to bring with you. You are not being asked by God to predict the future. He encourages you to take the next step in a faithful manner. And once you do, what was previously ambiguous will start to make sense. The initial sensation of a painful cut will progress to the start of your recovery. Your testimony will be shaped by the events that once consumed you. He will give a crown of beauty in place of ashes, oil of joy in place of mourning, and a garment of praise in place of a spirit of despair to all who mourn. Isaiah chapter 61, verse 3. However, the exchange is contingent on your submission of the ashes. That is the essence of the moment. In a divine exchange, you release the burden you've been carrying, and He gives you something new. You've been anticipating the moment when a breakthrough will happen. However, in this case, it isn't falling. It's in line with your decision. The freedom you seek will not be realized in a miraculous moment. It will be accomplished through a courageous affirmative statement. I support releasing the unhealthy soul connection. Yes, it is important to recognize that just because someone was kind to you in the past does not necessarily imply that they are kind to you now. Yes to the healing that comes from separation, rather than attempting to correct what God never asked you to correct. This is not an example of cruelty. It's a state of clarity, because the impending completeness far outweighs the perceived loss. The Lord declares, "You have not experienced the alignment for which I am preparing." However, it is approaching. The alignment of the words is critical. Many people are requesting God's favor, confirmation, and the opening of doors.